Zambia's new leader has been forced to hit the ground running. Just 1 month after winning a presidential election, Hakainde Hichilema is in the U.S. He spoke at the United Nations General Assembly this week. That was his first time. And he's meeting with the World Bank and others to try to secure much-needed funding for his country, or at least a bailout. Last November, Zambia became the first African nation to default on its sovereign debt during the pandemic. Now, Mr. Hichilema faces an uphill battle to stabilize the country's economy and implement the democratic reforms he has long promised for Zambians. The U.S. is impressed with Hichilema's stated commitment to democracy, so much so that President Joe Biden applauded the record number of young Zambians who turned out to vote for him, while U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris welcomed Mr. Hichilema on Wednesday. That is the first Zambian leader to visit the White House since 1992.
We recognize, of course, that in addition to the great ties between our people, we both share common values and a common vision of what is possible in the midst of the challenges that we all face. And today, of course, we share a commitment to democracy.
We're following in your footsteps. We too were delivered by the people of Zambia in a substantial way under very difficult circumstances, democratic space not being available, since you talked about democracy. But we're very grateful to be here, to be invited to the White House after so many years.
So here's the background. President Hichilema was once declared an enemy of the state. Today, his victory is viewed as an inspiration to other opposition leaders across Africa. Despite the praise President Hichilema has received this week, the future stability of his country has to be top of his mind right now and top of everybody's mind. Let's discuss this more with Zambian historian Sishiwa, who joins me from Lusaka in Zambia. We're coming up to the month since he was inaugurated. What's the mood music from Lusaka? Is he doing what he said he would do, Sishiwa, or it's slightly different?
Well, I think Zambians are patient. You know, he has only been in power for less than a month, and it's difficult to assess him within that short period. But what you see in Lusaka is a degree of optimism. You know, there was a collective sense of hopelessness before his election, but after his election, what you find is you know, people are aspirational, people are hopeful. There is a sense that with him at the helm of Zambia's leadership, something good is going to happen.
I like how you tried not to assess him within this first month, yet you're the smart mind that we invited back to do especially that. To what are your people you're listening to, what you're hearing on the streets, on the airwaves? Are people still in that euphoric mood, or are reality starting to set in?
I think that people are still in that euphoric mood. They understand that it will take time to tackle some of the key challenges that he has inherited. The economy is top on the agenda, and they see the trip to the U.S., for example, as very important to tackling that, particularly in relation to the debt issue. They also see him as perhaps one who will play a major role on the global stage. You know, having been a front-line state during the Cold War era in the 1970s and 1980s, Zambia assumed a marginal role in international affairs after the removal of Kenneth Kaunda from power in 1991. Kaunda's successors, I must say, focused more on domestic concerns than foreign policy issues. And Hichilema himself faces enormous difficulties at home, so it is hard to see him spending so much time abroad. But if he gets it right at home in terms of domestic policies, then Zambia's role on the world stage is likely to change, I think, in three main ways. You know, the first is where we are likely to see the success story in terms of the democratic transition being used to really promote democracy. And it's likely to ride against the influence of illiberal states on the world stage, the rise of China, the influence of Russia and the UAE, for example. The Zambian election outcome shows that despite these forces, you know, people make up their own mind and that they strongly believe in democracy. And the election outcome was possibly the clearest example that you could find on the continent of a successful democratic process, and hence the alignment that we are seeing with the United States in terms of values and interests. So viewed from Washington, I would say Zambia, Malawi, and Ghana stand out as the success stories in terms of democracy. So we are likely to see increased Western support towards Zambia, partly to stem the rise of illiberal influences. But I also think that Hichilema is likely to be more supportive towards the promotion of democracy, and opposition parties in the Southern African region, having been obstructed by the ruling elites over the period that he was in opposition. He invited several opposition figures from the region to his inauguration, and that's a massive move. But as he said earlier today, we're also likely to see Zambia taking a major role in resolving some of the conflict in the region, including the turmoil in northern Mozambique.
Right. And he invited Nelson Chamisa from Zimbabwe. There's people who were inspired by him, Bobby Wine in Uganda. And I spoke to President Hichilema just before he left Lusaka, and he told me this is about leadership. Things can be done better compared to the administration of President Lungu. But then everybody who's elected says that about their predecessor, right? They all imagine they can do better. Realistically, how much does he have to deliver to overcome that?
I think we'll be able to tell in about 3 to 6 months' time after the honeymoon period is over. There are huge challenges that he has inherited. The corruption was intensive under Lungu. Human rights were violated. Democracy was seriously eroded. So he has to not just tackle the economy, but also embark on political reform, including tackling corruption, as well as restoring respect for human rights. And that is likely to be something that is likely to affect the region. That's why he's trying to project himself as a different leader on the regional stage, supporting democracy in countries like Zimbabwe, where the opposition, for example, is constantly harassed and not given space to operate. Civil society is likely promoted as well. And that's likely, I think, to find the resonance in the region, where so many countries, for example, particularly in relation to opposition party and civil society, face enormous difficulties in terms of their operation.
We'll leave it there. Brilliant analysis, Sishiwa. Thank you so much for coming back to talk to us on CNN.